Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are picking back up again with the King in Black. This time we're focusing on Venom, but I do have a question for you guys. Right now, we're covering Miles Morales' Spider-Man here on Comics Explained, and we don't really have a schedule for him, right? It's just kind of fitting him in wherever we really have space on the channel. It used to be that we had like different days dedicated to different things, so that people who wanted to see Miles Morales comics could come in on a certain day, people who wanted to see Spider-Man could come in on a certain day, things like that. And I've thought about returning to that as opposed to the kind of hodgepodge uploading schedule that we have at the moment. So let me know if you guys are interested in seeing that return, where like we dedicate a single day to Miles Morales. Like Sunday would be Miles Morales Comics Day. And also a lot of you guys have asked for Agent Venom. Is that still something you guys want to see, right? Do you guys still want to see a series on Agent Venom? Because we can dedicate like Saturday to Agent Venom or something along those lines, right? So just let me know if that's something you guys are interested in seeing down in the comment section. But this basically picks up kind of really between like the last video that we did, the main King in Black story, and this tie-in right here, right? This Venom story. And it really picks up with Spider-Man talking to Dylan, the son of Eddie Brock, in the aftermath of Dylan basically losing his dad, losing Eddie Brock. And one of the things that Spider-Man says here, and this is one of the reasons why I feel like Donny Cates would have an amazing Spider-Man run. One of the things that Spider-Man says here to Dylan is that he understands he knows what it's like to lose, right? To feel so desperately that you're right, but to fail all the same. You know, like he understands, you know, what it means, what it feels like to lose someone. But he also understands how hard life can be after that, right? That, you know, it almost seems like the world has it out for you because you'll lose the people who are the closest to you, but the world just keeps spinning. And the world hardly even notices you lost that person in the first place. That for Dylan, it feels like the world is crashing down, right? It feels like his entire world has just come to a screeching halt. But the reality is the world keeps going. Right? There are people who wake up in the morning and they go through their morning routine and they get in their car and they deal with rush hour traffic. They get to work, they do their job, they go home, they watch their favorite TV show, or they spend time with their kids, all the while totally oblivious of the fact that Dylan lost his dad. And the reality is that people like me or you who have experienced loss in that way, you know, a close individual to us, and in my case, my parents, we understand what that feels like. And that's why having, you know, kind of reading Spider-Man or having, you know, reading a point where Spider-Man has this conversation with Dylan is an interesting thing, because Spider-Man kind of goes on, he doesn't really make it all, you know, melancholy and sad. Instead, he kind of says, for so many people who are out there, it's much easier to just lay down and to just let all those hits, let the world hitting you just wash over, right? Because the toughness and the difficulty of the world keeps going on, and the world will keep coming at you with hits. And for some people, it's easy to just lay down and just let it happen and just let them get beat up. But he says for people like Dylan, you know, and really Spider-Man himself, they have the power to change it. Now, I would extrapolate that, I would expand that out, and I would say that applies to everybody. That we know that a lot of us know what it's like to experience loss, to experience, you know, losing something that's significant to us, and it puts us in a place where we feel like the world comes crashing down around us. But I would say each and every one of us has that inherent ability to stand up, right? It's like Rocky Balboa said, you know, Sylvester Stallone said in the Rocky Balboa movie, it's not about how hard you can hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. That's the message that Spider-Man is giving to Dylan here, that you've experienced a huge loss. And yes, Reed Richards and those guys will tell you you're a one shot for success, and they'll put all that weight and all that pressure on your shoulders and say only you can really bring an end to all this. But the reality is there is no wrong here. There's just what's right for you. And if what's right for you is to just roll over and to just let those hits wash right over you, then do that. But if what works for you is getting out there and fighting the good fight and taking all your rage and all your anger out on destroying this villain, then do that too. And that's exactly what Dylan does. And this is a fantastic thing to bring into the story, because it really gives a lot of context to the segment we saw in the last video, where Dylan goes out there and just starts blasting the symbiotes off of all these different individuals who have been captured by Null. Because it's not necessarily, you know, Dylan doing this and then falling down the dark side, right? It's not like he's Anakin Skywalker, right? Succumbing to his evil and falling down the dark side, and eventually he's going to become a Sith Lord. It's not like that, right? It's him basically saying, like, if the world is going to feel my pain, then at least I'll do some good with it, right? And I'll take out this villain and I'll save all these different heroes who are out there. Now, while that's going on, switching over to Eddie Brock, there's an interesting kind of connection here. And the reason why is because as Null is losing these individuals who have been bonded to him, right? Captain America and the various X-Men who were there and so on and so forth, that Eddie Brock actually feels it. Notice that Flash Thompson, Agent Venom, and Rex Strickland do not experience this in the same way. And this is really kind of Donny Cates saying, like, there is a unique connection between Eddie Brock and Null the symbiote god, right? There's a unique connection between these two. And it's really kind of his way of saying like, in the end, it's all going to come down to Eddie. But one of the things is when he's asked like, what's going on here, Eddie's response is like, Null is being hurt. Like somebody out there is hurting Null. Now you also get this funny moment, right? I mean, what would a Venom comic be without Agent Venom having some kind of comedic element? And so it's one of these things where Eddie Brock believed that like Flash Thompson was just gone forever. That when he was effectively killed off, that he was gone, that he was never going to come back. And so where Flash says, hey man, like understand that when you absorb my codex, I mean, sure, you absorbed that part of me, but my essence was still alive. This place, this kind of hive, is essentially the afterlife for individuals who were bonded to a symbiote, right? It's effectively where they go when they die, or at least that seems to be the case. And in fact, Donny Cates is actually going to expand on this here in a minute, but it's kind of like this way station, right? It's where they go when they end up passing on. And so Flash Thompson was there when Eddie Brock went to Flash's grave. And Eddie asked him that. He's like, were you there? Like, were you able to see me when I went to your grave? And he's like, yeah, man, when you were talking about how like I was the best Venom ever, and I was better than you, and I was the greatest hero ever in the history of anybody who's ever been Venom. You know, and Eddie's like, well, I mean, you know, I wouldn't get all carried away. And he's like, yeah, man, I heard all that, man. I heard how I was just a much better Venom than you are. But it's a little bit of humor here, right? A little bit of comedy kind of going back. And that's one of the things that's so great about this is I would love to see like a legitimate actual team up, you know, like a team up comic between like Eddie Brock as Venom and Flash Thompson as Agent Venom, right? Like, I mean, like an actual ongoing series, like a buddy cop series. I would love to see that, right? I think it would be absolutely amazing. Though, you know, with that kind of a story, let me know if you guys would want to see something like that, because I feel like that would be legit, right? I feel like that'd be absolutely awesome. I'm actually going to post that question in the community section of the YouTube channel. For those of you guys who don't know, I've taken to the community section more frequently, which is basically a way for me to like talk to you guys directly, to do polls, different things like that. And so I think I'm going to ask that question in the community section on my YouTube channel. Like, should we get an Agent Venom Flash Thompson and Eddie Brock Venom team up book, like a buddy cop book? And I feel like people are going to be like, yes, we should definitely get that. But one of the things that they really begin to pick up on is that all these individuals who have basically been ensnared by Null, who have kind of been held in this particular place, are effectively being freed. That Dylan is freeing them from Null's capture, right? From Null's control. And they're just kind of getting back out there into the world. One of the other things that begins to happen is there's this giant red rift that basically opens up. And initially they're a little skeptical. They don't really know exactly what this thing is. But that's when they begin to realize that this place that they're in is not really the afterlife for people who have been infected with the Venom symbiote or bonded to the Venom symbiote. Instead, it's essentially a way station, you know, that they're kind of trapped here by Null. So under normal circumstances, what would happen is like, you know, Flash Thompson, for example, when he was essentially killed, that he would just go on to the afterlife. But because Null controls all these symbiotes, to be bonded with a symbiote means to come under the influence of Null. But Null's influence is weakening, right? This kind of place where he's keeping them trapped in is weakening. And so this portal opening up is basically their gateway to the afterlife. The issue that they have here is they're kind of begging the question, is it one of these things where it leads them to like heaven, to the actual afterlife, or does it lead them to somewhere worse, right? Does it lead them to like yet another stage of Null's captivity? And what they end up realizing once they pass through is it leads them to another stage of Null's captivity. It really leads them to basically the center of it all, right? The central nervous system of where Null operates from, right? That is kind of like the God Hive is what they refer to it as, right? The place whereby Null seems to have the most control, kind of Null's base of operations, so to speak. But they also start to realize a few things that are going on here, that when you have these various symbiotes who have been released from the various superheroes out there, that because they bonded to these superheroes and then they were released by Dylan, it now means they're free of Null's control. And so what Null's forces are doing is capturing these symbiotes, and then presumably they're going to go back under Null's control. But this is basically a way for Donny Cates to say that like Null's ability to dominate these symbiotes is not all encompassing, that a symbiote can be freed from Null's influence. Now we already knew that to a degree just by virtue of the different stories and the kind of history that Donny Cates had given us about like the Venom symbiote that was bonded to Eddie, but it's a whole other thing to see it on such a grandiose level, to know that like the symbiote that was bonded to Eddie is not the only one. Anybody out there bonded to a symbiote, once they're freed, that symbiote becomes autonomous, it becomes self-aware, and it functions of its own accord. And so what they end up doing is coming up with this kind of plan where the idea is to effectively free all these symbiotes that are now self-aware, that are being held captive by Null, and then use them to free themselves from this place and then get back out there. Now initially Eddie's the one that wants to go and do it, But the response of Flash is no, right? When all this popped off, and essentially kind of referencing the beginning of Donny Cates' run, he's like, when you first met Rex Strickland and Rex Strickland sent you on that mission and so on and so forth, it was supposed to be me who was supposed to go. I never had the chance to fulfill that mission because I was basically gone by that point. And so it was basically Flash stepping in and saying, I'm going to be the one to pull this off, right? This is my mission. It was always supposed to be mine. I'm the one who was supposed to free those symbiotes. I wasn't able to do it, so I'm going to free these instead. And so he basically dons the full-on, like, you know, Agent Anti-Venom armor. And I gotta be honest with you guys, he looks legit. I mean, tell me this isn't amazing, right? Like the Agent Anti-Venom armor with like Flash Thompson's design, because the last time we saw Anti-Venom, I'm pretty sure it was Eddie Brock. So like I don't think we've really seen like Flash Thompson as Agent Anti-Venom, which is amazing. Like, it looks amazing. It looks so cool. It's one of these things where Eddie's like, okay, like, you know, this is kind of like the final request of Flash Thompson before he passes on to whatever his life is supposed to be. And I'm not going to deny a dying man's last request. So he's like, okay, fine. If this is what you want to be, then go do your thing. And it's kind of a funny situation here because, and you know, Flash Thompson tells Eddie the one thing that made him weaker than Flash Thompson himself, right? And what he basically says is, you always questioned yourself. You always questioned whether or not you were an actual hero. And that's one of the reasons why people loved Agent Venom so much, is because you kind of had that little beginning segment where Flash Thompson questioned himself and wasn't really sure whether or not he was the best person for the job. But as time went on, he really came into his own. That was the evolution of his character, the way that Rick Remender wrote him. He was just coming into his own and eventually becoming the hero that fans just grew to love. And that's when he tells Eddie, you know, tells Eddie his weaknesses. You question yourself all the time, every step of the way. You never allow yourself to just accept the fact that you're a hero now. Sure, you've made mistakes, but so have I. I literally spent my high school years beating the hell out of Peter Parker. Like, I was a dick, and then I went into the military, I lost my legs, I learned to be humble, and then I accepted the fact that just because we start our life out on a certain path does not mean we're predestined to remain on that path. We can change our fate. We can become something better than what we are. And that's where Eddie really begins to accept the fact that, yeah, man, he is a hero, right? Like, sure, he's made mistakes. Yes, he was the arch nemesis of Peter Parker for a long, long time. Yes, he tried to kill Spider-Man. Yes, he's killed people in the past, but just because he's done these terrible things does not mean that he's destined to always be a bad guy, that he is, by all standards of measurement, a hero, right? He was willing to sacrifice his life to save the world. And so because of that allows him to kind of evolve and basically say, okay, fine, you be the soldier and I'll be the hero. And so the result of that is you have Agent Venom, right? Flash Thompson, who just goes running in, right? Who just goes flying into this whole thing. It's like the coolest thing ever, right? It's like Flash Thompson, Agent Venom on full display. It's the coolest thing. He goes running in, guns blazing, shooting up all these symbiotes, and then one of them manages to knock the guns out of his hand, and he's like, okay, fine, then we'll do the Hail Mary. Like, he pulls a grenade, throws it, and then blows up this kind of nervous system area. And then of course he's basically ensnared by all these symbiotes, and where you would think that he was gonna die, because the response of Rex Strickland is, oh my god, they're gonna kill him. The response of Eddie is, no, like, they're not going to kill him. All these different symbiotes bond directly to Flash Thompson, and he emerges as just this gigantic symbiote dragon. It's his new powers, right? The next stage of Flash Thompson. And it even looks awesome. He's like an Agent Anti-Venom dragon. It's amazing. Like, it's it looks legit. And stuff like this is why the storytelling of Donny Cates in Venom is so landmark and so incredible, because he broke the symbiotes out of Null's control. He downloaded all the codexes into himself, and now he's up there fighting, right? Now, this is a very important thing, because what this looks like Donny Cates is hitting at is Flash Thompson's gonna come back, that he's not gonna stay dead, right? He's gonna re-emerge and come back out into the real world. Whether that's true or not, I don't really know. And we'll just kind of have to wait until the end of King in Black to find out, because it may be that he just legitimately dies, right? He just passes on to the afterlife, and the story of Flash Thompson as Agent Venom is officially over, right? We'll just never see him again until some other writer decides to just bring him back for some reason. But while all that's going on, you end up having Eddie Brock, who is kind of talking to Rex Strickland and saying, okay, like, this is our chance, right? We don't have a whole lot of time before Null figures out what's going on here, but like, we'll bond to these symbiotes that are rescued and we'll get the heck out of this place. Only for Eddie to turn around and realize Rex Strickland has totally been taken over by Null, the symbiote god. Null's returned. He's aware of what it is that Flash Thompson and Eddie are doing, and he gets Eddie Brock in his clutches with every intention of killing him in this final place. But with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoy this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.